Well guys, it's been a little over a month since my first video on the Riot MMO, and it did pretty well. It's my only video that's done really well, and we all know why, and it's great. I'm excited about that. Before I get into the updates, what I want to talk about quickly is a little misconception about me with the Riot MMO. I did a video on my top 5 upcoming MMOs, and it's not my top 5 upcoming MMOs, it's more what I viewed as what the public would be most anticipating or would have the most mass appeal. And clearly, to me, the Riot MMO is going for mass appeal with their game. They're going for casual friendly, they're going for a lot of things that would, in theory, be very mass appeal. To me, they seem to be leaning towards not drastically altering from the WoW type of game. But for me, I'm going to do another list of my personal top 5 upcoming MMOs, and the Riot MMO would not be at number 1 in that video. It's number 1 in my current top 5 video, which is not, again, it's not my personal top 5. And the reason that the Riot MMO doesn't make my number 1 for my personal top 5, Ashes of Creation is number 1, and I think Riot is probably number 2 or number 3. I might actually slide Pantheon into number 2, but Pantheon has a lot of work to do to get to number 2. They need to show some level of polish, but I like the design principles behind the game, but so far I don't like the game that they've presented. They got a long ways to go there. This whole WoW clone thing, I get with the Riot MMO, I get WoW clone vibes like really bad, and it's way too early to get that or to think that, but I get that, and I can't shake that. And until we have more information, you know, I probably won't be able to shake that vibe. But I really think that they're going for a game pretty similar to WoW, and that's what turns me off from it, because I'm burnt out from the WoW formula. I'm burnt out from the WoW and Final Fantasy XIV model of basically being a single player game with some MMO aspects added. Ashes of Creation and Pantheon are kind of true old school type MMOs, which isn't a bad thing. That always gets such a bad connotation when people hear that. Anything that's not WoW is basically niche and not, but that's not, historically that hasn't been the case. To me, WoW has moved away from what an MMO truly is, and Ashes and Pantheon are moving back towards what MMOs really are. And with the Riot MMO, I just feel like they're kind of going down that same path. I know it's way too early, and I'm just basing this off tweets and things like that, but there's a lot of tweets, and we've compiled a lot of information in this document, and after you go through all of this, you kind of get a feel for maybe where they're going. And I just don't know if I like the direction personally that much. Will I play the game? Yeah, most likely. Will it be a highly polished game? Yes, most likely. Will it have probably pretty good combat, which is vital in an MMO? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to have great combat. Will it have, you know, good graphics and all this stuff? Yes, I think so. So I think it's going to be a highly polished game. I think it's going to be a good game. And I think unlike New World, you know, had the huge game company behind it, but it was a game company that had no success in the past. Whereas Riot has tons of success. So it's a big game company, big corporation with a lot of money, and they've hired truly talented MMO developers. Whereas New World, most of the senior management of that project had no MMO experience. It's crazy, and that's why part of the reason it failed. Whereas the Riot MMO, man, they're hiring some juggernauts in the industry, so I think, you know, they're probably going to release a decent MMO. The only thing I worry about is Riot has become a pretty large company, and there is more than one story of these large game corporations that essentially they become inefficient because they are so huge, they have so many leaders and not enough actual doers. And then when you have so many leaders, I mean, you look at the list of how many senior roles are on the Riot MMO, and it's just a huge list of just like senior developer. And yes, it's going to be a huge game. Yes, it needs a lot of leaders, but at some point I think you have too many leaders, and then what happens is you end up with like a lot of these leaders like in a committee. And in committees, I've always felt are one of the worst things. I've never liked the idea of committees, because when you have a committee, what ends up happening is basically groupthink. Like somebody is kind of like leading the committee and kind of directing the group towards a certain viewpoint. And so what you would think would be like a democratic type process ends up being more authoritarian than than you would imagine. And so you end up with groupthink. You don't end up with a lot of original thinking. And these big corporations, they're very often afraid to like try new things and do new things and innovate. They've talked a little bit about innovation, and you can go through the document. And in my previous video, I talked about that a little bit. Yeah, I don't know that they're gonna look to go drastically outside of the box of what an MMO has been for the last 20 years since WoW became a thing. So beyond that, let's get into this actual update. First, at the bottom of the document, I added an updated section, and you can see I added some new LinkedIn accounts to the LinkedIn section, and I added an entire account or an entire section for Twitter accounts, which you can see here. And in this, I also have my Twitter list that I made on Twitter with all the devs in it. So if you want to follow these people, I made it pretty easy for you to follow them yourself. And within my Discord, I have the dev tracker set up for the Riot MMO. So if you join that, link in the description, link to my Twitter's in the description, you can follow the dev updates yourself very easily. Into some of the recent tweets. There's no new, before we get into the tweets, there's no new job postings. There's nothing that I could really find on LinkedIn new. And a lot of these tweets, I gotta give credit to Oh Hey Spun again. He's putting out videos constantly about tweets. So I stole some of this from him. But I also found some of my own tweets that I found interesting. And I'm not going to add every single tweet from the devs into this document. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just adding things that I find kind of interesting or things that kind of add to the story of what this MMO might be. So the first one is a big thread from Mark Yetter on respecting players' intelligence. Basically what this gets into is how many visual clues do you put into the game versus, basically how much hand holding you do for the players versus letting them figure it out on their own. Interesting thread, very long. The link is here if you'd like to see it. Boss fights. Now this is a very old Twitter post. I got this from Oh Hey Spun and one of his videos, and this is back from when she was a WoW dev. But she likes to make bosses challenging but not undefeatable, basically. So I imagine we may see something like that in the Riot MMO. I think it's very possible since she is like senior producer. I forget her title, but she's way up, way up the ladder. Big GHOSTCRAWLER thread on casual friendly, artificially increasing the play. Yeah, so he did, right after my video, he did a post asking for what people don't want to see in the Riot MMO, and a lot of it was like just wasting time, like wasting our time, things like that. So he did a big thread, and he has a TLDR here of wanting to respect players' time. Again, he reiterates that doesn't mean it's going to be a small game. It kind of reconfirms, like, to me, like they're going kind of the same route of World of Warcraft, I believe, but we'll see. It's way too early to speculate on that. And I probably shouldn't have that few until we get more information, but we'll see. I found this really interesting from Xenogenic, and it's talking about his group experience in Lost Ark and how if you kick players, the group is not actually automatically refilled like it is in WoW, which, it's a good and bad thing. It's like when you automatically replace people, it makes it very easy to just kick people if somebody makes like just one mistake, and everybody can have an off day and things like that. And just kicking and replacing is kind of silly, but at the same time, it is kind of convenient and handy to not have to wait around for another group member. But in this case, in Lost Ark, basically you work with the person, you explain things to them instead of just kicking, and I think that's more social, and that's more what MMOs used to be. And so maybe if they can do stuff like that, they've made a lot of comments about wanting it to be a multiplayer game instead of a single player game, which we'll have to see how that all shakes out. But that gives me hope that it's not just a straight WoW clone, because WoW has become just a single player game to me with some added on MMO stuff. If you want to get to if you want to get into the higher rating tiers, then you need to get into guilds and things like that. But until you get to that point, you can experience all the raids through LFR without ever stepping foot into a guild or into a voice chat or anything like that. And to me, that kind of takes away from what like MMOs truly are. Player engagement, long thread from Mark Yetter on how to engage players short-term versus long-term. And, short-term engagement is things like dailies and things like that. And a lot of times game devs get really lazy, and WoW's gotten really lazy with, instead of making good, like, long-term goals to work towards, they have these dailies and things like that, short-term things to just kind of hook you in and make you need to play every single day. That can be overdone. And so he's just talking about how they could possibly balance all that out. Interesting thread, worth reading. This is related to that, and I think, yeah, it's actually related to that post, and it's a response to that post. Basically, if you have 50 hours of fun content, but the system demands 500 to actually experience it, then that's obviously not gonna work. And I agree, that's good to hear that. Like, you shouldn't have just grind just for the sake of grind, with only small bits of it being enjoyable is not fun for anybody. Time-gated content, this is all stuff that is in the more interesting speculative category, the last few posts, and then this one as well. And these two posts on time-gated content make me really think, and I almost put this in the confirmed category, but I think they are most likely going to have time-gated content. And the reason that he gives GHOSTCRAWLER is because it prevents people from falling behind too much, which, I mean, if you miss like a daily, like a time-gated daily or something like that, like, you're forever behind that day to me. But I don't know, maybe he's talking about something else. Yeah, and I get that. This actually makes sense to me. So, like, they drop new content, but you can't experience all of it like the first day. You can't just rush through it in a single day, which some elements of that I think can be useful. But there's too much time gating, I think, in a lot of modern MMOs. So I hope they don't overdo it on the time gating, but we'll see on that. I think it's a lazy kind of design choice to just time gate things to kind of throttle players. I think you should throttle players by having just a lot of content, but I know that obviously that takes a lot more dev time and things like that, but they have the manpower to do it. They have the manpower to have the full amounts of content to keep people engaged. I love this post because I've always felt this is a good idea. Separating PvE and PvP. I can't put this in confirmed based on the wording, but you know, I think there's a decent chance that the thing about separating PvE and PvP abilities and balancing is it's a lot more dev work, I believe. I mean, but in the long run, it makes balance obviously a lot better for both. So I hope they go that route. I've always felt that's a better route to go. But like I said, it takes a bigger dev team, and MMOs take a huge dev team to begin with. So these smaller dev teams, it's really hard for them to kind of separate these out. But a dev team the size of the Riot MMO, they can actually do that. Alts and skipping content. This is another interesting thing I saw. Basically, you know, when you re-roll an alt, do you have to do all the same content again, or can you skip some of it? We'll see where they come on that. Now we're getting into things that I felt good enough to put in the confirmed category. So these are new things I've added to the confirmed category. Character customization. They will have customization. And this is a response to my actual document when I asked him on Twitter how close I was on some of these things when I made this post. And obviously he said that he can't confirm anything. And so when you make speculation videos and you make speculation posts, people will take it like pretty far. People will take it to where, they're not going to have any customization? And that's not what I said. I just said that it looks like they might have less than some other games just for better balance. But they're definitely going to have customization. You can't really have an RPG without customization. Randomness. I put this in confirmed for two reasons. One, RPGs almost always have randomness. And two, he's made a lot of comments about randomness. I think you're going to have RNG elements to this game, which is fine. I have no problem with it as long as you can't overdo it. And I do tend to like a little bit less RNG, just because balance tends to be better, and especially in PvP, like random, like huge crits out of nowhere. Like, tone it down a little bit. Don't make it massive, and make the time to kill long enough to where the RNG kind of evens out, to where I might get a few procs, but he also gets a few procs. That's a way to kind of even it out again. But it does make PvP and it does make encounters more exciting and more Twitch based and more fast paced when you have randomness elements. I do like randomness, but it has to be within reason. Transmog, I put this in confirmed because for two reasons. He invented transmog in WoW supposedly, and all MMOs seem to have it these days, so I think it'll be in there. Quest hubs, I think I put this in confirmed as well. I think they're gonna have quest hubs just because of this comment. He doesn't even know how you would do a RPG or an MMO without quest hubs. I can't think of a lot of MMOs that didn't have like some form of like quest hub. Like Guild Wars 2 had like the heart system. There's a lot of MMOs that have like dynamic events. Guild Wars 2 had those. Rift had those. A lot of MMOs have had like dynamic type events, but a lot of those games also had like quest hubs. Now, Guild Wars 2 is the only one I can think of that didn't really have quest hubs, but you just kind of went around and you looked at the hearts and you found the hearts and you did the quests in kind of like a big circle or however you wanted to do it. When you did map completion, you just did every heart on the map. So I think it's quest hubs are likely, and I think they're confirmed. Now, looking at my past video and what I had here for what I think this game is, I can't really change much from it other than the few things I put in confirmed. Like it's gonna have transmog. I think it's gonna have quest hubs most likely, but all these things kind of put it more towards like WoW. Like everything that keeps coming out just pushes it more towards like it's basically just WoW, which if you like WoW, I get it. If you like Final Fantasy, I get it. But for me, I'm going to look at this game somewhat skeptically. Now, I try not to be like a super negative person. And if you want negativity on the internet, there's plenty of it. If you want like channels that focus on negative aspects of games, negative aspects of MMOs, like worst MMO ever and things like that. And the reason people do that is because people love negativity. It's inherently built into our DNA, more or less. We like negativity, and we tend to click on negative type headlines and titles more often. It does work. That's why people do so many negative things, and that's why people like talking about that Dream World MMO, and because it gets a lot of views. The negative type things get a lot of views, but I'm aiming to be more of a positive channel. But on this game, I will be kind of a critical voice just because I'm skeptical of some things that they're talking about. Anyway, guys, I think that is it for this video. Going to maybe do this once a month, maybe once a quarter, where I'll update this document and do a video about it. Riot MMO is not going to be my main focus of this channel. My main focus is actually the creation with some general MMO stuff as well. I've been doing a lot of general MMO stuff lately. I have a kind of a personal type video coming up. Might even be the next video, but I want to do quite a bit more videos on Ashes. Some more general MMO videos. I have a huge list of videos that I need to get to, and it takes time to do these things. So like and subscribe and all that good stuff. It helps me out a lot. I don't ask for it a lot, but I will ask for it on occasion, especially towards the end of the video, because the people that I want to subscribe to my videos, I want you to subscribe if you actually got all the way to this point, because that means you actually like the videos. If you subscribe at the beginning and then you leave, I don't necessarily want those people to subscribe as much. Not that it's a bad thing for them to subscribe, but I want people to actually want to be here and have proven that by watching the whole video. So like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Later.